York, and she's having a lot of snow. So let me just make sure this is
better to have your picture back.
Oh,
because I see a reflection of my picture on top of you, and it looks pretty bad.
Okay. All right. Hold on one second. I'm not sure why that changed. We're having some gremlins today, but so let me. No. That's weird. My camera is on.
You have disappeared.
I have disappeared, and it says that you are me now.
No, I'm not you.
How did that happen?
I've never seen it happen before, ever.
We've been doing this for a couple of years now. There I am. That was weird. That was weird. Okay, so I have to say, I'm just back from Peru, like literally this morning, and I was working with some medicine woman, and maybe things are just weird.
Some of it with you.
Maybe that's it. Oh wait.
You're gone again.
I am. How is that happening? Well, that's weird. Okay, I've never seen that happen before. Well then.
Whoa.
I think I will just.
There, now you're you again.
So I'm back, but I keep flashing in and out. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to do the introduction. I'm going to turn it over to you, and maybe that will that will fix it. Anyway, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming, and happy Friday night. It's good to have you all join us for our first meeting in January. We sort of a little late start, but it's been an interesting month. For those who don't know, my name is Judy Kitt. I'm the president of the Foundation for Mind Being Research. We're a nonprofit, all volunteer run organization based in the San Francisco Bay Area. We've been around for 43 years now, since 1980. We've been exploring the bridges of science and consciousness, and really we've been a forum for scientists and healers and researchers and artists and shamans and people who are really trying to understand the nature of reality and expand the context within which we see ourselves and the world. So we're excited to be joining a lot of like-minded people around the world who are trying to help move the dominant worldview of our planet from one of competition and dominance to one of co-creation and synergy and regeneration. So our website is fmbr.org, and you can see all of our past presentations on our YouTube channel, which is FMBR TV. This one will be up there later on tonight. So we are very honored to have the esteemed PMH Atwater with us, back with us today. She was with us in person years ago, and we were trying to remember when that was, but neither of us can remember. PMH is one of the original researchers in the field of near-death studies, having begun her work in 1978 and completing 10 books, or is it more now? Is it 10 books?
No, I just finished my 19th.
Oh my gosh. So this is an old bio. So she's won many awards, appeared on numerous TV shows, and spoken around the world, always inviting people to look past appearances for the truth that underlies what we think we know, which is just right up our alley. And so we're so excited, PMH, to have you here with us to talk about near-death experiences in children, which is just a fascinating topic. So welcome, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. Yay. Oh, well, let's launch right in and talk about children. I've written a number of books on my research of children, but I want to focus tonight specifically on the research that I have done with 397 people. It was a two-pronged approach. I did some of it maybe about a decade ago, and did some of it very recently, and came up with this very broader approach. Let me talk about the broader approach that I'm taking. And that is, I'm looking at those people who had a near-death experience between birth and the age of 5. And then I'm also looking at that same area, that same kind of activity, but they're now in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. So my first batch was with kids, maybe 4 years old and older, maybe up into their 20s, maybe into their 30s. And that book is out, that research is out. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute here, whoa, team, what about when they grow up? What is that like looking back? So I went after those people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. They had to verify that they had a near-death experience in those ages, between birth and the age of 5. And believe it or not, a woman in her 80s could, because her sister was in her 70s and she could remember. So she verified her sister's experience. I thought that was just precious. And so asking the older ones, looking back, what was it like for you growing up? You know, it's sort of like the sum total of the experience. What was it like for you? So the younger ones, of course, looking at the experience itself and what it was like for them. But the older ones looking back and saying, did it make a difference in my life? If it did, what was that difference? So let me just broadly paint a picture here. Again, 397 people. So that's a big group. Those, see, how do I really want to get into it? Let's focus on the fact first that these are people who had no before. When they had a near-death experience, there was no before. So we're not talking about older children, we're not talking about teens, and not talking about adults. They all had a before. But when you're looking at babes, let's say the child had the near-death experience at the age of 1, maybe birth, maybe in the womb. These people, these children, don't have a before. So they can't compare like an older person can. They can, you know, I had my near-death experiences in 1977. I had 3 in 3 months. So I had a before. I could compare. But these children cannot compare. They call themselves birthers. I mean, I didn't make up that I didn't make up that title. They did. They call themselves birthers. And they have a very different view, a very different way of dealing with their experience. In so much of a way that it really, you really have to sit back and think. Most of my cases came from abuse issues, drowning, birth difficulties, some types of emergencies. I really want to move into this. I'm sort of thinking here, how am I going to handle this? Let me talk about some of the cases. We have a case of Penny. She had her near-death experience in the womb. Clearly remembers her mother smoking. Whenever she would start to smoke, she would panic in the womb. You know, they talk about babes still in the mommy's tummy. They don't know anything. They don't think anything. Wrong. My research clearly shows these kids can remember, some of them from inception. Some of them from mom and dad getting together. I had one even drew a picture of her conception, gave it to her parents when she was old enough, handed it to her parents, and her parents were so embarrassed because she was absolutely right. It just blew their minds. So we're talking about people who have memory in the womb, people who have memory at birth and beyond, clear memory. So I'm talking about Penny. And again, her memory was of her mother smoking. Doctors say, well, it doesn't matter if the mother smokes or drinks. Wrong. The kids in the womb know exactly what mom's doing, and they don't like it. And Penny did not like it at all. It got in. She had trouble with that. Then we're talking about, I want to talk about dark light experiences. Yes, we have dark light. We can't just talk about a near-death experience as a bright light or a white light experience. No, it is not. We need to realize that it can have many different colors and types. So I want to talk a little bit here about Star's experience. This is before birth. So she's still in the womb. She's with her partner in the womb, and they're discussing about birth. Whether or not they want to be born just yet. Is it just going to be her? Is it going to be him with her? How are they going to handle this? And everything is dark. It is a dark light experience. A dark light experience is very positive. It's just as positive as white light. When I'm opening that door of light, I want to open that door a little bit further. In childhood experiences, there are very clearly three lights. There is this really bright, raw, powerful light. It doesn't have any particular color. There is the black or dark light experience, often has purple tinges to it. And then there is the white or bright light experience. It can have gold tinges to it. And the children are very specific about this. They know what's going on. They say, well, the dark light experience, that's a mother experience. That's mother light. And the white or bright light, that's father light. But that raw, powerful experience, that energy, that's God's light. And they're very specific. Mother light and father light come from God's light. And God's light is primary. So, when we're talking about lights, and many people do, the near-death experience is a bright light experience. Sorry. There are clearly 3 ways of viewing that kind of light, and the children are very specific about this. And Star was, because in her dark light experience, her dark light was beautiful. It had all kinds of shapes in that light with her. And she considered it extremely positive. So I want you to know that. I'm sort of moving pages around to make sure that I'm very clear about the material, because I don't want to stray, because I have so much to share with you.
Can I ask a question, PMH, just about protocol? When you say, people remember having had this experience in the womb, is this like a hypnotic regression kind of? How do you access those memories?
I just ask them,
and they remember in their waking.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm going to say most childhood experiences, the child themselves is wide awake, are clear, and they tell you about it. Once in a while, you'll run into a child who kind of, plays with it a little bit, maybe is not that clear, but that's the exception. I found children to be very open. What I found with children, you never want your eyes to be above theirs. Ever, ever, never, never. So when I was dealing with this 4-year-old, I spent most of my time on the floor with them. You never want your eyes above theirs. If you do, then right away they switch to the mother, father, someone else is in charge kind of mode. But if you want them to be open and clear with you, then your eyes have to be at the same level. So I was very specific with that with children. After they've had their experience and they're dealing with it, or sometimes maybe they're having their experience when they're 2 or 3 years old. I want to talk about Alma. She had her experience when she was about 2 or 3 years old. Her a friend of the family would often come to visit, a large male. Whenever she would go into her bedroom and shut the door, he would notice that. He would go into the bedroom and shut the door also and be with her. And that's when he raped her and in essence died. That is to say, she left her body and was up on the ceiling and watched him rape her from the ceiling. This happens a lot with children, by the way. And you can find it with adults as well. They'll leave their body and go up around the ceiling because they're safe up there. I want to be very clear here in saying that's not an out-of-body experience. This is always a way to save themselves. They're saving their soul. They're saving who they are, what they are. They're saving themselves on the ceiling looking down. An OBE from that direction under that kind of condition is always a defense mechanism. It's not an out-of-body experience, really. It is a defense mechanism. It is a way they save themselves. That is to say, their soul, their personality, they can save themselves in that manner. So you get a lot of this kind of thing where they're leaving their bodies. And you run across this anytime, anywhere, let's say during a tornado or an automobile accident. Children who want to save themselves will have an out-of-body experience. Again, as a defense mechanism, it's a way for them to be able to ensure that they will always be themselves. Now, there's a lot of changes that happen with little ones who have near-death experiences. I have found overall that they have blended senses or multiple senses. When I'm talking about blended senses, multiple senses, I'm really talking about synesthesia. And I'm finding that this is typical, absolutely typical with child experiencers. You also find it with adults and teenagers, but especially with children. And I want to give you an example from my own childhood, so you'll know what I'm talking about. No, I didn't have a near-death experience. I was born with synesthesia. And of course, back in those days, people didn't even know anything about dyslexia. Yes, I'm 85. So, so my time in the first grade, I was the only child in class who could smell color, see music, and hear numbers. That's synesthesia. I also had dyslexia. So I had a really rough time in the first grade. And the first grade teacher was convinced I was a liar. The principal was convinced I was a liar. And they did all they could to get me kicked out of school. And my mother fought to keep me in school. And by the end of the first grade, I was so angry and I was so mad at everybody that I just decided that I never wanted to grow up because grown-ups were stupid. But that was just a me thing. But it's very common also with these kids because they come back with synesthesia. And again, that's common. We have, for instance, the case of, let's see what her name is here, Penelope. And synesthesia for her works in this manner. In her mind, she is dancing with numbers. She's dancing all over the place with the numbers. And in dancing with the numbers, she's able to solve problems. She's able to come up with the right answer in school. And it's always correct. And when a teacher asked her one day why she always had the right answer, she told them what was going on. And the teacher was just so shocked. She didn't know how to handle it. We have another case, similar, somewhat similar, and that is a boy. That's a boy. Let's see, where is it? He was in the state of Georgia, the north of Georgia. And some of the things these kids come back with, they're able to see clearly all around. This boy, he was a first grader. It was breakfast time. He's seated at the breakfast table. In the middle of the table is a box of cereal. And he has his little bowl. And other people are around the table. And he's looking at that box of cereal. And he reads all about the words of the side he can see. Then he reads all the words on the left side. He reads all the words on the right side. He reads all the words on top of the box. He reads all the words on the bottom of the box. He reads all the words on the back of the box. He never moved. Nobody moved the box. He could see it all. I run across this fairly often. I also run across cases fairly often where children, how do I put this into words? They simply remember, and they remember clearly. And they remember, what I would say is, well, let me describe it. This is a boy in Georgia, a little north of the main part of Georgia. He's in school. He drowned. They were able to save him. He's back in school now. It's the middle of the school year. He's okay. He's healthy again. All is well. Goes to school, first grade. What are kids reading in the first grade? See, Spot, Run. Dick and Jane. This kid is reading Robinson Crusoe. And he wants to know all about why the book Robinson Crusoe was ever written. He's abstracting. This is a common after effect for children who have near-death experiences between birth and the age of 5. They're able to abstract at very young ages. Certainly by the first grade, many of them before then. I had a lot of these kids, 2 and 3 years old, that had library cards. I had one 4-year-old that was reading the Wall Street Journal and understood it. I mean, they blow your mind. What gets me, though, I want to share some of these percentages because I think they'll blow your mind as they did me. I want to be very clear here. Drawn to and highly proficient in math, science, and history. That's 397 people. 93%. Rejected school discipline, 33%. I'm getting learning reversals. Mine works different than before, 84%. I did a lot of work whenever I could with the parents and IQ tests, and when these kids were old enough to take a standard IQ test in school. Okay? If they had their near-death experience, birth to 15 years, most of those in my study had it from birth Some of them 6 and 7, most of them to the age of 5. When they were old enough to have standard IQ tests, 48% were testing genius level 150 to 160. Those who had their experience between birth and 15 months, when they were old enough in school to have the standard IQ tests, they were testing 81%. Genius, 81%, between 150 to 160. Some of the babies, when they were grown, a little older in school, some of them were testing 180 and above on standard IQ tests, not 150 to 160, 180 and above. One of the things that I want to do in the next few months is to get together with some doctors. If there's doctors in this audience, get a hold of me. I'm talking about scientists, doctors who know what they're talking about, who will look at these figures and say that they would be willing to deal with this and willing to look at the fact that most of these kids come back. We're talking majority here, big majority, are coming back with a mind that is brilliant, are abstracting, certainly by the first grade, usually by the age of 4 or 5. Why? I want to know why. I want to know what's going on here, because these kids come back with an advanced nervous system, an advanced brain, also, many of these issues, and I want to take it up someday with someone who can really look into this and go that extra mile that I cannot go, because I'm not that kind of doctor or researcher, scientist. But I want to know more about this. And 90%, 397 people, 90% did not bond with their parents. They may have loved their parents, but they didn't bond with them. They bonded with the other side, and they never lost that bond. They knew they came from somewhere else. Many of these kids, some of them talk about what we call reincarnation, but most do not. Most of them aren't even interested in reincarnation. Their interest, their love, their bonding is with that river of consciousness on the other side, what we can call the other side before birth. And they're aware of that river, that incredible world of consciousness. Once in a while, we'll have a dip in it. That's a life. And when they die in that life, they come back up to that river. And it'll have another dip. That'll be another life. But their home is that river of consciousness. That incredible world that is far beyond what we call bodies, we call mom and dad, we call work, we call growing up. That's what they relate to. And they don't seem to ever get over that. And one of the things that really bothered me in my book, please, 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 everybody read The Forever Angels. Near-death experiences in childhood and their lifelong impact. You've got to read that. The study I did, there's nothing else like it in the field. I don't care where you go, what you do, there's nothing else like it. As Bruce Grayson said, no one else has looked at it from both ends. The child and the grandparent. The child growing up, entering adulthood, and the grandparent looking back. So you've got these two different, very diametrically opposed points of view, if you want to look at it that way. And what they're seeing, how they view the near-death experience, is very different than what we might think. I want to underscore that by saying in the book is a chapter on PTSD. And here's some percentages that are going to surprise you. 34% were positive, having had a near-death experience. 61% were negative. It's all about home. I spent a lot of time with those who had difficulty telling the difference between the other side and this side, and having to grow up on this side. And one specifically, we really got into a good discussion with this. And she was the one who tried to commit suicide as a child. She wanted to go back. Children view the other side as where the beautiful people are. Very seldom will a child use the word angel. That's unique. Unless they've heard it in their family or they watched a lot of TV. A child will say the beautiful people, or that world where the loving people are. So this one wanted to go back to where the beautiful people are. And she tried to commit suicide to go back. And she was about 3 or 4 years old. So when I was able to talk to her, and she was older then, I said, why? Why? Why would you want to commit suicide? And she said, well, you've got to understand, that's where the beautiful people are. And I wasn't breathing where the beautiful people are. Now I'm back. And the people here aren't as beautiful and loving as the people there. So I just wanted to go back where the beautiful people are. She had no concept of suicide. She had no concept of killing herself. She just wanted to go back to where the beautiful people were, who were loving. We don't understand as adults what this means to a child. And when they look at it as a child. And I cover this in the book. It's all about home. They want to go back home. Here isn't home. Sorry, here is not home. There is home. And they just simply want to go back to where home is. It's a guilt for wanting to go back and a betrayal for getting kicked out. When they get older, many times, they'll have this PTSD kind of thing. So I cover this issue in the book. And it's not really quite the same as PTSD. Because for them, it was just simply, they wanted to go back to where the love was. If you have a good sense of that, then it helps you to better understand child experiencers. I had a number of them that had multiple experiences, and this one in particular, she was being raised by witches. The only reason they ever had her was so they could sacrifice her on the devil's altar. It's the only reason they had her. So she went through many near-death type incidents, and just an incredible woman when she finally dealt with this. She had 17 near-death experiences in childhood, the first one at the age of 6 weeks. I want to read you. She's now married, has a family, is doing well. But she had to really work on that. And I want to read to you her summary. She said, all of my experiences in this life, whether they appeared to be dark or light, are expressions of love, experiences of searching for love. I came into this life with a purpose. This was not known to me until much later in my life, or I would not have been able to truly know the experiences as they were in the moment. What I know today has brought everything full circle. She was able not only to forgive her parents, but to forgive all the things they did to her. She was able to understand why they did it. She was able to understand why she came into this world. why she went through all of this. And she was able to forgive them. She was able to understand the why of it all. She became a healer. She became a happily married woman, and she has, I believe, 4 kids. You know, when you're working with children and all the things that happen with children, you're not only your mind and your heart is opened in ways you never thought they ever could be. It's just an experience that really enables you and forces you to look at life from a very, very different angle. And I want to quickly bring into here, this is not near death, but yes, maybe it is. Because we're talking about the abortion issue. That book is dedicated to a woman, a child experiencer, who had her experience in the womb as she was being born, as her mother was trying to commit suicide. Did you get that? She's still in the womb, in the process of being born, while her mother is committing suicide. This experience enabled her to understand life from a very different angle. She grew up a very wise and unusual person. All of this has enabled me to view what happens to children as a way to clarify and better understand all of us and the different rhythms we work with, the different ages we are, and the way we come into the life and the way we leave life. Most of you know, I had a near-death experience. Well, I had 3 of them. 3 in 3 months in 1977. And it was in my 3rd near-death experience that I was told by what I call the voice like none other, because I don't know what else to call it, to do this research. Yes. This is the only reason I ever became a researcher, is because that voice told me to do the work. Well, I'm a cop's kid. I was raised in a police station, so I used police investigative techniques, those that were practiced about, way back around, what was it, 1944. I used police investigative techniques as my protocol. I don't use the scientific method because that method forces you or makes you you use standard questions, and they're handled in a very standard way. My method, as much as I can, is to be with the person, watch them, talk to them, observe how they handle their bodies. If someone is going by, observe their response to that individual. Get into their homes whenever I can. I mean, I'm that cop on the beat, for heaven's sake. I mean, that Dad always said, you learn more from the body than you do the mouth. So I'm that I'm that cop on the beat, watching people, talking to them, of course, asking questions, of course, but those questions are, yeah, what happened to you? Tell me about it. I'm not going to predetermine what you say. I'm going to observe what you say. And the dance you make as you say that. And again, whenever I can get into your home and talk to your friends, your neighbors, your wife, your mother, your aunt, whatever. Yeah. My research base now is nearly 5,000 adults and children. 44 years I've been doing this. Yes. I call it a memoir autobiography. I just finished it last week, sent it out to publishers. I hope one of them buys it pretty quick. Yes. I call it Edgewalker, the many lives and deaths of PMH Atwater. Well, if we're going to talk about the abortion issue, and I would like to, bear in mind that a mother's cells are forever imprinted in her children. If you have an abortion, the cells of that baby are still in you and will be forever. If you have an abortion, you don't get rid of the kid. Sorry. The cells are forever with you. And abortion brings up the soul and all these kind of things. In my household, I have one son, two daughters. The oldest daughter got pregnant and did not want to have the child. She came to me, she said, Mother, what do I do? I said, well, have a session with the soul of that baby. So she did. She went into deep meditation and she had a session with the soul. And she said that she didn't want to carry this child. She didn't want to carry him. What are her options? And it was a little boy. And the little boy said, no problem. I'll just go on to someone else. You can go ahead and abort my body. I'll just go on to somebody else. So she had an abortion. without any problem, without any grief. But you see, she asked the child, she asked the baby, she asked the spirit of that soul, did that child want to be born, or was it okay that the child went on to somewhere else? In her case, it was okay. That little boy went on somewhere else. This is a big deal anymore. With our news, throughout our society, what are we going to do about abortions? Well, how about asking the soul, what does it want to do? Any comments or questions?
I have two people with their hands raised, and somebody from YouTube wants to know. One second. This is Geraldine. Were these conversations about NDAs? Did you have NDEs? The conversations, did you have them with children when they were children, or what percentage of them were with adults talking about experiences they had as children? Does that make sense?
Yes, and I don't know that I can give you percentages. The youngest physically was 4 years old that I worked with. And again, your eyes can never be above the child's eyes. So if the child's on the floor, you're on the floor. If the child's on their belly, you're on your belly. And I did a number of children. So I couldn't say percentages. They grew, up into the 20s and 30s. Oh, how many did I do? And then when they were older, I would say my early research was predominantly between birth and the experience between birth and the age of 20s and 30s. My later research definitely when the people were in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And I give you those exact figures in the book. I don't always carry them in my mind. Sorry. But I've done a number of research projects with children. Children of the Fifth World. I wrote that one. Mm-hmm. Not with near-death experiences, but those children coming into our world now, what are they really like? When you're looking at the different ages of the world, going back maybe, I don't know, 100,000 years ago or more. So you're looking at the various predictions Madame Blavatsky made and Edgar Casey made, and all the different prophets and psychics. So we're looking at, according to them, the different ages that the human family has gone through. In looking at the present age of human beings compared with the others. So if you want to get deeper into that subject, you want Children of the Fifth World. And I get very deeply into that subject and the kinds of kids we're having now. And especially one of the traits of the children that are coming in now, they have a very different view of sex. Well, they do. They sure do. And I talk about that at length in the book as well. Let's see. The near-death experiences. I'm grappling with the titles of many of my books. I don't remember the titles of all of them right now.
Well, there are 19, so I guess you could be forgiven for that.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, but certainly you can get on my website, www.pmhatwater.com. I produce a free monthly newsletter. I call it Only for the Curious. So get on my website, go over to newsletter. There's archives there. You can go through the archives and see, past issues. Sign up. There'll be a new issue coming out next, I believe next week sometime. The February issue is coming out. So yeah, I've got my finger in several pies. Also, if anybody is listening, ta-da! Anybody really listening? I've started a new research project. Yes, I have. That voice that spoke to me in 1977 came back last August. Spoke to me again and said, there is another research project I am to do. I am to look for near-death experiencers, doesn't matter your age, near-death experiencers who had an alien experience during their NDE or within 1 year afterward. If that is true, get a hold of me.
There's a woman watching on YouTube right now, Geraldine. I just want Geraldine Orozco, who does a lot of this work. I'm going to ask you, Geraldine, please get in touch. Please get in touch with PMH.
Yes.
She had another question here. She said, you mentioned these children do not fully comprehend life and death. Talked about wanting to go home. How did these children commit suicide? How would a parent be able to identify that, if at all possible? How did these children commit suicide?
One of them with a knife. Another one taking a type of I don't know, a type of cleansing or cleaning liquid.
Cleaning product of some sort.
Yeah, something that's swallowing it. Most of them simply talked about it. And sometimes I would check with their parents, and yes, indeed, they did try. But most of them, it was that exasperation, that desperation of looking everywhere for the other side.
Mm.
This one girl said she looked under the beds, she looked in the closets, She looked all over the basement. She went outside. She was looking and looking and looking for the other side. She knew it was there, but she just kept looking everywhere, up and down the street, other people's homes. She was desperate to find the other side. So she went through that type of that type of activity, that type of desperation, trying to find the other side. Another one, I had a long talk with her, and she had taken something by mouth and was saved. Parents rushed her to the hospital. She was saved. I said, why did you do that? And her answer was very similar to what I've already said. She wanted to get back to where the love was. Mm-hmm. She didn't hate her parents. She didn't want to run away from her parents. She just wanted to get where the love was. And I find that very interesting.
I have two people with hands up, and I'm going to
my hand up too. Hi.
I'm going to unmute. Forgive me if I get your name wrong. It's Riadara Walton. And if you want to unmute yourself, you can go ahead, and thank you for your patience.
Oh, no, that's all right. I have been actively listening. I needed to know, and I really think she already answered it, because one of my questions very early on was the ages, but she's given that. What I wanted to know was there any, have you categorically done anything with not just age groups, but and the gender, but like the background, either religious background, non-denominational of the children or the parents?
Yeah.
Okay, wait a minute. That was part A. Yeah, and part B was what families they're from, like African American, are they Latino, Hispanic? That's some of the data I want to know, because I know I'm one of the few African Americans on this call. I happen to be a medium, and I know your work. So I'm really very happy, and I just want to make sure I get your latest book, and that is the one with the angel, Forever Angels. Because I have the others. Okay,
all of that is held out.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And also in my book, near-death experiences, the rest of the story. I give you the stats on Black people all over the globe, people from South America. And one of the things I got a kick out of, I had three people who were raised voodoo. Never heard of the Bible, never heard of Jesus, never heard of God. They're voodoo. And in all three of their experiences, and they were from different parts of the globe, three of them were met by Jesus on the other side. Huh. Now that blew me away. But they were all three met by Jesus, and because of that, they were very curious and wanted to know more about who Jesus is, because they never heard of the Bible. So who's Jesus? And so they went on a search of who is this man called Jesus, because he was really nice to them. But yeah, I covered.
That's wonderful.
A lot of different dimensions, different types of people. Absolutely.
Culturally around the globe.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Fantastic. Gary had a hand up, and okay, I'm sorry, Riadar wants to talk again. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
It was just which book was that? You category all of that came. Which specific book? Because I don't think I have that one.
Well, certainly in the Forever Angels, but also in near-death experiences, the rest of the story.
That's it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm done.
And you're also going to find that in the Big Book of Near-Death Experiences. By the way, the Big Book is the only encyclopedia ever written on the near-death experience globally. And I gave my copyright and everything to the International Association for Near-Death Studies. They own the book. So when you buy the Big Book of Near-Death Experiences, I don't see a penny of the money. It all goes to the International Association for Near-Death Studies. And I did that on purpose because that book needs to be global. It really is an encyclopedia. The only one needs to be updated, but it's the only one we have. And I truly feel that needs the support and involvement of the International Association of Near-Death Studies. So they have it. They get the money from it, and I think that it's the proper place for that book.
Excellent. I put their website in the chat, and Diana, I wanted to just Diane. She said she experienced several episodes of placenta detaching while she was in the womb. Her mother's view was that she hemorrhaged during her pregnancy, but did not miscarry. And she said she remembers putting her head back and breathing fluid, like actively breathing fluid in order to live. And she remembers having this peanut gallery of encouraging spirits with her. And then she has challenges with her lungs today. I'm wondering, do people talk about having guides and people kind of guiding through the process?
Yes, they do.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely do.
Riadar, you had one more thing you wanted to say? Or did you put your hand up by mistake?
By mistake, I was trying to lower it. I'm done.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right.
Thank you. I'm looking at it. It says lower hand. I'm trying to keep it down. I don't have anything else. I'm just enjoying it.
Okay, I'll do that. Let me see if I can do that for you. And then Gary had his hand up, but it looks like he took it down. You may have answered his question. And then I just had a question about you gave a statistic, I can't remember what it is, about near-death experiences that were traumatic for children, and then some proportion that were not. In the experience where people did not have a traumatic near-death experience, did they talk about just sort of lifting out of their body, or usually when I think of near-death experiences, I think of it in response to a trauma, right? Some bodily trauma where they're kind of ejected or violence or something like that. But I'm less familiar with a near-death experience that is not traumatic.
I'm not sure. How do you want this handled?
Well, let me give you an example.
Well, in my research, so we're talking overall. 1 out of 7 had a hellish experience.
Okay.
So certainly not all experiences are heavenly. Some are hellish.
Yeah. Okay.
Very few with children, but some. If you read the Big Book of Near-Death Experiences, there's a drawing in there, several of a child who had a near-death experience. I think that child, when they were about 5 or 6, maybe. And that was a very, very hellish experience. Scared the one out of that kid. But you very seldom have a hellish experience with a child. But you do. There are some. And there, of course, are some with adults. Again, 1 out of 7 in my research base.
I ask because my son told me when he was very young, we were in Hawaii, we rented a minivan, we're driving down the road, we stop at a convenience store to get a drink. And he tells me that day that from his car seat, and he must have been 4 or younger, that he had this experience where he was floating like way above the car, and he was attached to his body by a silver cord, and he was just flying away, but I brought him back. And in his experience, and I am driving a minivan, just kind of going, we're on vacation in Hawaii. And it sort of stuck with me. What an odd thing. Was that a dream? Was that a real experience?
He probably had a very real out-of-body experience. I can't say necessarily that it was an NDE, but children often have these kind of out-of-body experiences where they leave their family, the earth, and they go elsewhere. And then, hopefully most of them come back.
Yep.
And they have these incredible stories. And the fact that he saw the silver cord. One of the things that I've just discovered, and so is Karen Herrick, a very good psychologist, I might add, is that we truly feel that the vagus nerve in the body is the silver cord. It is as near as we can tell, it is the physiological aspect of the silver cord. And I talk about it in my memoir that's coming out, because I took a fall, a really big one, and I really came to that conclusion. I really thought, I felt it. And it was one of the things that helped me to better understand why most near-death experiencers, and I'm talking broadly here, after their experience will go through periods of time when they're not breathing. They're just simply not breathing. And it happened to me too. Maybe for a few minutes, maybe for 5 minutes. We're going back now to Boise, Idaho. I'm an Idahoan, I'm a Western woman. And I was going down Vista Boulevard toward the Capitol building. I was driving. It was lunch hour. So a lot of people on the road. And I'm not breathing. And I became aware of the fact that I wasn't breathing. And I thought, this is interesting. And I'll just see how long this lasts. So I timed it. And I went all the way down Vista Boulevard, around the Capitol building, headed out State Street toward Floating Feather Airport. So it was about 8 or 9 minutes. No breath, no need to breathe, no panic. And I thought, seems to me like the brain needs air. So I pulled my car over to the right, I parked it, I went into meditation, and I restarted my lungs myself. And they started again, and I was breathing again. Do you know, I found this type of thing, or something very, very similar to it, with the majority of near-death experiencers in my research base. So I really think there's something here about the vagus nerve. And I would invite anybody who wants to know about this kind of thing to research the vagus nerve and how it functions, because it functions in a way very similar to what we would need if indeed we have a silver cord.
I know that's a really big area of research right now. So wonderful. I can't wait to see what comes out of it. So I have two more questions. Diane, I'm going to, you raised your hand, so I'm going to unmute you. If you want to unmute yourself, or did you just lower your hand? All right. She wrote it here. Can you speak more about encouraging spirits?
Encouraging spirits.
The encouraging spirits that she experienced when she was in the womb. This she called them a peanut gallery of I guess spirit helpers. Do people talk a lot about spirit helpers when they're having these near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences?
They'll talk about spirits, yes. They won't necessarily call them helpers. But you very often see other beings. That to me is normal. And children, of course, talk about other. It is very common, let's say in a near-death, let's say an automobile accident, and the parents die, but the child lives, and the child is in the hospital. It is very common for the parents to be hovering in the ceiling, wanting to know what's happening with the child. Is the child going to be all right? You know, good parents. And the child will see them up there. And of course, the doctor and nurse think the child is hallucinating. The child needs more drugs or whatever. No. Listen to the child. They're really there. So this idea of being out of the body, that's common occurrence.
Excellent. Okay, one more question, and then we will wrap up. So Roger has a question about. He says he was born after an extremely difficult birth, about 30 plus hours. It was 3 days after an eclipse. And I'm not sure what the question is exactly. Is there anything sort of astrologically about eclipses or comets or things happening in the astrology that
well, certainly I'm an astrologer too. So certainly eclipses have a lot to say about you as a person growing up. That stamp on your personality. And of course, you have to look at the astrological sign and where that happened in your chart. But yes, you know, that certainly has an effect on you as a human being. but if you had your near-death experience during an eclipse, that would be very interesting for me to look at you, how you turned out as compared with the astrological sign of that eclipse. It would
So
be
if people want to get a hold of you, what is the best? Is it email is the best? Or to just go onto your website?
just go onto my website, of course, and email, yes.
PMH@water.com. I put it in the chat, and I
No,
also
no,
put
no, that's not my address.
your website.
It's PMH@water.com. If they use that address,
Oh, that's an email address.
my email address is PMH@water.com.
Okay. I was just talking about the website, which is PMH@water.com. And all of that, and all of your books are there, and all of your I assume there's a way to contact you there as well.
Oh, yeah, www.pmhatwater.com for my website. Yes.
Wonderful, because it sounds like, our group, I think a lot of people have had experiences that they would probably love to share with you. So, so yes, thank you. We're at the end.
Please don't rush me with a lot of.
Yeah. Don't overwhelm her.
Yes, I would appreciate that if I do have a blog, and so what I'm doing now is if a person shares their experience with their permission, I put it on my blog.
Fantastic. I love this. I think this is this is such a rich topic, and people love to talk about it, and they love to hear about it. And I can't wait for your memoir to come out.
Yes, Edgewalker.
Edgewalker. How wonderful is that? All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
blessings on your soul's journey, and we will see you next time.
You
Have a
betcha.
great weekend.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.